Someone is doing like straight up construction or wood cutting or something outside, so I really hope this mic is not picking that up. Okay, so the Witch Hat Book Club has been fantastic. It has surpassed my wildest dreams. We have 37 members, lots of participation. It's been really, really fun. We are in the thick of week 3 right now. Although I'm in kind of an odd spot with these videos. I had kind of envisioned something that would involve a video making component because I am a person who likes to make videos about the things that I like. But I don't know. This might be something that I kind of play by ear. I don't know how essential to the experience or how interesting doing a video on the book club discussion every couple of weeks would be. I know I originally said I'd do a video per volume, but that would mean like 16 videos, a video a week. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna stick to, or at least try, I'm gonna try to stick to one video every 2 weeks and cover 2 volumes. I don't know if there would be much of an audience for these videos, if anyone that's not in the book club is super interested in just listening to hear what I have to say or what we all talked about. I don't know. This is an experiment. The videos just aren't worth the time and effort and no one's really interested in them, then I just won't do them. And if you want to see what's happening on the book club side of things, you can peruse the website. But for the time being, I'm just going to sit and chat. No crazy production or anything. People are still welcome to join the book club if they're interested. It's at rhythmers.boards.net. I will probably be capping it for new readers after week 5 because I think that's quite a bit to catch up on if you're brand new. But if you're a rereader, then sure, you can join. I don't mind. Even if you don't want to join and sign up, the non-spoiler side of things is visible to anyone who visits the site. So even if you don't want to log in and post and become a member, you can still go over there and read the discussions as they happen. Or you can ignore that and just put me on in the background while you fold your laundry. If I'm putting anything visually interesting up on the screen, I'll have a little audio cue to let you know that you need to look at something or that you can look at something. I'll just kind of give a recap of what happens in each volume and then talk about the discussion. It's been really fun going through these with quite a large group of people because everyone has their different angles. We've got a lot of artists and sewists, which isn't surprising considering how heavily this manga focuses on drawing and garments. But we've also got someone who works at a stationery store. We've got people who are somewhat fluent in Japanese who can give us information on what the original word might have been for something. We've got educators and a lot of people who work with children, myself included. I just think it's neat how there's so much to relate to. Not even on a character level, but just on a mundane, this is what I do in my day to day. And I see this reflected in this very fun, magical story. And that can sometimes make my day to day job seem a little bit fun and magical. Witch Hat Atelier is about a girl named Coco. She has always dreamed of being a witch. She has always loved magic. But she can never be a witch because it's something you must be born into. You have to have the gift of magic. Coco lives in a village with her mother and they run a fabric shop. One day, a mysterious stranger shows up to her fabric shop and Coco learns that he's a witch. He performs a spell to fix a customer's broken carriage, but he performs it in secret, and no one's allowed to look while he casts his magic. But Coco looks, and what she sees is that magic is done through drawing. With a simple fountain pen and ink, he draws this geometric array that makes the carriage brand new. And Coco realizes that years ago, when she was a very young child, and a strange witch at a festival gave her a book with pictures in it and a little magic wand, she realizes she's had those implements to be able to create magic this whole time. That wand is a pen and ink. That book is full of magic seals. She doesn't tell anyone what she saw, but when the man leaves, that night, alone, by candlelight, Coco starts to draw pictures out of her book. They start small, they start simple. a levitation spell, a fire spell. The further she gets into her book, the more intricate and complex these spells become. And the man, that kind witch from before, has come back to her home, snatches her up, and flies away with her, just in time to save her from this spell that begins turning everything around her into stone. And Coco's mother is caught up in the spell. This man, Kefri the Witch, tells Coco that's the great secret of magic. It's drawing. Anyone can do it. But in order to prevent things like this from happening, only a select few are allowed to learn about it. But now that you know the secret, you can't be allowed to continue like this. I have to wipe your memory. Coco throws a fit. She just watched her mother turn to stone. She doesn't want to forget magic or her mother or any of this. But the witch pauses and realizes if he wipes her memory, he'll never have a single lead on what that spell was, who gave it to her, what that book was. So he says, Coco, can you honor the secret? Do you have the will to study? And she agrees. She says, yes, I can. Yes, I will. And so Coco, from today on, will be a witch. Her new teacher, Kefri, takes her to his atelier, where he has 3 other students, all girls about her own age. Tetia, who's very excitable, Risha, who is very reserved, and Agate, who is the brightest student but not always the kindest. She learns that magic was once widespread, but when man has the power to do anything, then anything he will do. And so witches decided to wipe everyone's memory of magic and only let certain few have the knowledge to cast spells. All spells committed on another person's body are forbidden. That includes healing. The only spell that's not forbidden is the memory wipe spell, and that must be used with caution and only with great necessity when the secret gets out. And when Kefri must leave to the Great Hall to go get Coco's apprenticeship finalized, Agate, who is very displeased that this outsider girl who knows nothing gets to be an exception to the rule and gets to learn magic, tricks her into taking her apprenticeship test before she's ready. She must go to a range of floating mountains and brave the woods and the mountains on her own and come back with a flower. Coco is able to do it using her ingenuity and not her knowledge of magic, but her knowledge of cloth and her skills as a clothier. She's able to create a little glider style contraption that lets her fly to the top of the mountains and return with the flower. Kefri returns and is very distressed that his brand new student has gone off to take this exam with no instruction. This could have very well killed her, but she returns in one piece with the flower, and interestingly, she does not rat out Agate for tricking her. With the apprenticeship finalized and everyone safe and sound, Kefri takes his girls to the stationers. They fly into town, and as Coco is learning about this magic society that she now finds herself in, she suddenly sees through the window that witch from when she was a very small child, the witch who gave her the book and the pen and tricked her into doing forbidden magic, the masked witch whose face looks like an eye. And she runs, not away from this person, but towards them to get answers. She runs through town, and the other girls try to catch her, and as they run, the landscape around them shifts, and they realize they've been transported into a maze that houses a dragon. Agate and Tessia completely blame her for what happened, but all 4 of the girls are able to overcome their differences and team up to distract the dragon and escape the maze. They're not fully able to do it on their own, though. They are, after all, 4 12-year-old girls. And right at the perfect time, as they're just in over their heads, and Agate starts to fall off the side of a building, Kefri catches up to them and saves them by summoning an enormous water dragon that overpowers the real dragon. This masked witch watches the whole thing play out and congratulates themselves on the gift that they gave Coco. Back at the atelier, Coco's struggling to focus in her studies, so Kefri takes her down to the kitchen and has her learn some practical magic. They cook lunch together using spells and contraptions. And they all go outside to take a picnic together. It's pouring rain outside, but Kefri creates a little bubble that stops the rain so they can all walk out to the bridge and have a perfect little picnic. It's then that Coco meets Olrugio, the other adult who lives here at the atelier. He's just returned. He's not happy to hear that the outsider has been brought in and that she has been taken on as an apprentice, because it's Olrugio's job to make sure that nothing goes wrong here at this atelier. His job title is Watchful Eye. He's the mandatory reporter to make sure that these girls are taken care of and are being taught well and are not being taught forbidden magic and nothing shady or sinister is happening. And he insists, no, this girl, her memory must be wiped and she must be returned to where she came from. This isn't right. But Kefri says, if you do that, you must also wipe my memory too. And so Olrugio lets up. He's not exactly happy with this arrangement, but he will allow it. Coco has a brief little meeting with Olrugio. She gets to see that he's not so scary. He's a little prickly, but he's kind. And he's an inventor. He's created a lot of contraptions, including the glowing cobblestones that originally made Coco fall in love with magic. The rain picks back up again, and a distraught traveler comes to the door of the atelier, asking for help because his carriage has been swept away in the river. Agate sees this as her chance to prove that she can handle a tough situation. She wants to prove her usefulness. But Kefri says, no, this isn't your time, you need to stay home. But it's Olrugio who volunteers to go on ahead and take Agate with him, because there are things these girls can only learn outside through practical application of magic. It's Kefri and Olrugio who save the people in the carriage, while the girls stand by and make sure that the survivors are kept safe and dry and that their wounds are treated. But a boy who was in the carriage tries to climb back down the crumbling riverbank to save some of the goods that were in the carriage, and in the process he gets pinned under a rock. Agate and Coco must find a way to save him without visibly casting magic in front of any of these normal people, because if they are seen drawing, they will have to erase all of the memories of these people. Agate doesn't have her shoes that let her fly. Coco's pen and ink and paper are soaked and unusable. They're surrounded by people, and the adults have gone one upriver and one down to make sure that no one else is in trouble. Agate casts some flashy magic to draw the adults back and to keep the attention of the bystanders off of Coco. And Coco is able to climb down, use her magic to crumble the boulder that's on the boy's leg, and draw a seal on the underside of her coat that allows her to levitate up and out of the river with the boy. But just as it looks like the day is saved, here come the fantasy cops, the Knights Morales, claiming that someone here cast a spell of forbidden magic. They apprehend Coco and Agate. They determine that Coco is the one who cast a forbidden spell, and based on the rules of which society, her memory must be wiped. And thus ends Volume 2. So I hope that summary wasn't like way too long. I was hoping to just kind of get that out of the way. I'll just talk about my thoughts for a second. Chapter 1 drew me in from page 1 with the gorgeous artwork. It looks like something out of a 1930s fairy tale with the scroll work and the etching and the hatching and all of that. I was really impressed with the focus of this story simply on the mundane parts of life being magical in and of themselves. Kefri calls Coco's skill at her job with her mother magic, and I don't really think that's a metaphor. I think he is genuinely very impressed by her steady hands and her straight lines and her familiarity with fabric. The very first scene that introduces us to this world is Coco doing her chores in a magic pond, a magic spring. She's doing the washing. It's a very sort of Studio Ghibli thing to romanticize the mundane, the chores, the making of a meal, but what it's saying is that the mundane is magical. The costume design here is incredible. It's really cool to be able to look at a drawing and in my own mind to be able to reverse engineer how this garment was constructed, even though it's not a real garment and it's just a cartoon of a garment. There is such attention to detail, all these interesting little bits of embroidery and smocking and the petticoats and the shoes and the cloaks. It's just really, really well done. the shape work and the posing and the design language, it's very coherent, it's very consistent. The paneling is gorgeous, the characters are gorgeous, and the characters are complicated too. Kiefer is very, very nice. He is a sweetheart. He is a very kind man and a very kind teacher, but he was not particularly motivated to help Coco simply out of the goodness of his heart. His motivation, taking her on as an apprentice, was not to save this girl or to save her mother, but to get a lead on this mysterious person that gave her this mysterious book. Kiefer is obviously hiding a lot. His body language is very guilty when he is describing to Coco the aspects of forbidden magic and the memory wiping. We also never see his eye that's hidden behind his hair and his glasses. Something very bad has happened to him. And with the costume design, each of the girls, although they're wearing four identical outfits as their standard apprentice uniforms, they've all done something different with each of them. Coco's is just plain because she hasn't had any time to alter it, but Tetia has some fun embroidery on her boots and a scalloped edge on her petticoat. She's done a lot to personalize it. Agate has belted and petticoated her dress to give it more structure and form. It's a little bit edgier, it's a little bit more proper. Riche also has not really done anything to personalize her clothing. It's not the same reason as Coco. Coco's just new. Riche, I think, is just fine with wearing the default. She's not really one to draw attention to herself. Attention to body language is very important as well. Kiefer will kneel or lean or bend over or sit on the floor to talk to the girls because he's a fairly tall man and he, I think, is very cognizant of how intimidating that could be. He's very careful to talk to the girls on their level, never belittling them, but to speak to them as people, not as children or students. They're still his students, but he speaks to them as equals, as full people, while at the same time being a very reassuring force in their lives, someone that they can hide behind, someone who will hold them when they're scared, someone who will catch them when they fall out of the sky. That being said, he is not a flawless teacher. He was blind to the rivalry that Agate wanted to start with Coco, and it led to Coco being put in danger. And some of that is her own fault for being completely naive and just rushing into danger all the time and not considering that people might not have her best interests at heart. And some of that is on Agate for being petty and jealous, but some of that is on Kiefer for not exactly seeing the struggles that his girls were going through, and maybe putting a little too much on Agate as the oldest student. Something my friend Zahra and I have been talking about a lot too is how well this series balances the adults and the children. The children have their story, the adults have their story, but the kids aren't just forgotten about for the sake of the grander plot that the adults are involved in. Neither are the adults just completely extraneous, useless people because this is a story about kids. This is a story that I think is suitable for truly all ages of people. It is not a children's story in that only children can appreciate it, but is a children's story in the fact that it is very accessible to children. I would say someone probably even as young as 8 could read this and understand it and enjoy it the same way that a grown adult could. Another interesting thing about Kiefer is that he tells Coco how much he hates water and that he hates getting wet. And yet, he is a water main. He's a waterbender for all intents and purposes. He studied the thing that he hated and that he feared so that he could control it. And we see him willingly going out in the rain and standing in the middle of a river to part the seas to rescue the people in the carriage. There's something very, very admirable about him admitting this great weakness, but doing everything he can to fight through that. And it's a lead by example for his girls as well, because they all have their hangups and their weaknesses. But so much of what he teaches them is not just here's the magic and here's how you do it, but here is how to learn. Here is how to be a good person. The witches are essentially public servants. They are here for the good of the people. Here's how to do that well. Something in the book club that Mariam said that I thought was really beautiful was this entire essay about magic as design, how design has a purpose. You communicate everything in the world had to be designed by someone to balance creativity with appeal, with practicality, with wide usability. And that design communicates to the person that is going to be using the object. And because magic cannot be cast on a person's body, much of the magic that these characters do is contraption based, some kind of magic item that helps them achieve a goal, a cloak of flight, or the sylph shoes that help them fly, a rock that functions like a long distance communication device, the walkie talkie, pots that keep food permanently fresh. There's such interesting world building too, because we learn there are general use spells and personal spells. If you register a spell that you invent as a general use spell, it's unpatented, it's open source, anyone can use it. And so many of the themes that are being presented here just tie into each other in a lot of really interesting ways. We have themes of authority. Who gets to decide what the rules of magic are, right? We have a rule that says that you cannot heal people because casting magic upon the body is forbidden. And yet the purpose of magic is for the general and public good. Is healing not in the public good? You have a rule that says witches are not allowed to cover their faces. They're not allowed to be anonymous or to hide themselves. And yet your knights moralists, your fantasy cops, have visors that mostly cover their faces. Who is the arbiter of right and wrong? Who gets to decide? Bringing in themes of autonomy and education and children being treated well. I love the inclusion of each atelier having to have their own mandatory reporter to make sure that everything is okay, that children are not being mistaught or abused. And this inclusion of the watchful eye was such a relief to me, because I'd been thinking about, like, wow, you really just have like an adult out here with a gaggle of children. That could, I mean, I trust Kiefer, he's an excellent teacher, but like it could go badly in a lot of different ways with different teachers, with different kids. And so many stories just kind of refuse to acknowledge that. If you're writing a story for children, you don't necessarily talk much about the adult situations. You're not interested in hearing about all the paperwork and the safety measures that must happen when you join a magic school. That bogs down the story, and children aren't interested in reading that. But when you read something like that as an adult, you're thinking, who is watching out for these kids? This system could be rife with abuse. And so it's just a really incredible way to thread that needle of saying, hey, I, as an author, we as a society within the story are completely aware of this and have that base covered. And it doesn't do anything to ruin the magic for the kids who still get to read the story and see the fantasy of going off to live with other kids their age and learn magic from a cool teacher. But it's a reassuring nod to the adult reader that says, hey, I, as the author, have thought about this. This is not Naruto where we're raising child soldiers and nobody's taking care of them. This is a society that does try to care for the well-being of the children it is raising. And questions being asked here of what does a good education look like? What is the point of an education? How do we learn? And what is the point of that learning? Agate struggles with this a lot. She wants to prove to herself and others that she is the best, that she is the brightest. When it comes to the river rescue, Rugio reminds her, we are here to help people. We are not here so you can prove your skills. She loses sight of that. Along with this theme of good education is the interest in something. When Coco starts getting disinterested in her studies, Kiefer takes her on a field trip to the kitchen. Okay, we're going to apply this. We're going to do our chores. And we're going to do chores in a way that is interesting and teachable, in a way that makes you want to do them. Not only are you helping the family by cooking lunch for us today, but you are learning the practical applications of fire and heat and levitation spells. And with learning comes failure. Coco is someone who is not afraid to try all sorts of unorthodox approaches, not only because she doesn't know much about the society that she's now found herself in, but because she isn't really afraid of failure. If something fails, she'll just try something again. And when she says that, Agate is shocked that she's making a plan kind of banking on the fact that she'll fail. Because for Agate, who comes from a well-known high society witch family, failure is not tolerated. Failure is not an opportunity for growth. It is simply a failure. Okay, I'm coming up on like an hour of filming. This was quite disjointed, but I'm gonna chop it up, edit it together, see what it comes out to. And I would enjoy any and all feedback on these videos. If you think that they are worth the time for me to make, then I'll go ahead and keep making them. If you feel like they're extraneous, I will not keep making them, and we will just continue with the book club as is. I encourage you, if you're not part of the book club already, to at least peruse the website and see what's up. Pick up a copy of Witch Hat if you can. If you'd like to read along with us, I think if you watch the show up until the current episode, you'd be about caught up to where we are. You'd be a little bit past where we are in the reading plan. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you all, and we'll see you guys shortly for Volume 4.